So just waiting for Roger. I guess I'll have to edit these things in la futura. But for now, you get me. East Meets West, episode 282. I'll work on the blog post. Don't mind me. Roger should be joining soon. I'll text him. So you get a little pre-show in the Google Hangout. Actually, this is not broadcast publicly right now. So if you're watching this, that means you're watching it on demand. So you get a little bonus for watching later, which I'm not sure that's wise. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. We'll figure it all out. This is the longest running podcast I've ever done as of today. Because today we did the last Buzz Out Loud. All right, Roger says he got it. He got the invite. So hopefully he'll be along soon. Oh, Roger. There's Roger.
Hello.
Hello, Roger. Shall we broadcast publicly? Right now, only the people watching on demand, not live, can see us.
What's the difference?
Well, right now, nobody can see us live, but if we post this to YouTube later, which I do, then they can see this part. So it's like bonus material.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so like they'll get it later or they'll get it as it's happening?
They'll get this part later until I press the post-broadcast video publicly, and then people can watch us live.
Oh, okay. So do I have to share a link through Twitter
No,
or
you
anything?
don't have to do anything. Well, you can. You can say on. Hold on. Let me press the button. There we go.
So
3, 2, 1. And we're live in the pre-show of East Meets West, episode 282. So yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Now
so,
you can share it.
Just how do you well, share.
You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure how you Twitter. I mean, you can reshare the post that's up on Google Plus, but I'm not sure how to get. I'll have to look in a second. Hold on.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious.
You
know what it is? They don't want you to share it through Twitter.
No, they want you to be in Google. That makes sense. I get that.
They want to use the Google soup cans.
The soup cans?
Like, you know, the old style, like tied two soup cans together with the string. You talk to each other.
Here it is. Okay. In the little arrow, you can... No, you can't. That's weird. Oh, you reshared.
I reshared it, but...
In mine, you can link to the post, and then it gives you a...
oh, cool.
So there.
You want to send it to me, the link? Or can you...
Well, you can get it.
Oh.
All right, fine. Here, I'll
well, no. I mean, how do I do it? That's what I'm asking. I'm not being...
You go to my original post, and then arrow to the right, you do link to this post, and it gives you that. But I put it in chat, too, if you want.
Too late now.
It's too late. Hey, guess what, Roger?
What happened?
This is
Are you pregnant?
This is now the longest continuous podcast I've ever done.
Yay! Wait, does that mean we get a prize or something?
I don't know. Yes, we should get a prize. Please send us a prize. People of the world, send us a prize. Yeah, so I did the last Buzz Out Loud today. First time I'd done Buzz Out Loud since I left CNET. And it was the final episode. So that was the only podcast that I had ever done that predated East Meets West. So now this is the of podcast currently in production. This is the oldest one I've ever done.
I think that's kind of cool. Something that was totally unintentional.
It really was, right? I mean, we were both just kind of looking for something to do outside of work. So
you shaved too, or got a haircut?
Yeah, I did that for the show. I wanted to do something special to commemorate the last Buzz Out Loud. I had never done Buzz Out Loud with a beard, so last night I shaved off my beard.
You look like 5-6 years younger.
That's what everybody keeps saying.
It's
Eileen
good.
said I look like an oppressor,
A what?
like a presidential candidate.
Oh, okay. I thought you said oppressor. It's like, what does that
Yeah, no, oppressor, like someone who oppresses people.
mean?
Yeah. All right, shall we, hold on, I gotta fire up good old Wiretap Studio so we can record the audio version of East Meets West, which is actually really the only podcast version of East Meets West. You can watch East Meets West on demand on YouTube.
Which is kind of cool. See a bunch of two old guys,
Thanks
two
to the good old
middle-aged guys.
Google Hangouts. I like this Google Hangout broadcast thing. Big thanks to Alex Lindsay for hooking us up with it. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we can go.
Are we ever really, truly?
Welcome to East Meets West, episode 282. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Roger, and our episode is one of the few episodes that's a palindrome. Episode
282. Read the episode number backwards. It's still 282.
It's magic.
How crazy is that?
It's mind slightly bending. I wouldn't say too far broken.
So Joseph, Tim, and Antonio are all commenting on the Google Hangout.
Oh, nice.
We've got a nice live audience. You know what? I like this Google Hangout because when we were doing East Meets West live on Twit, it was fun to do it live, but the chat room was distracting.
It was.
And it is. It's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to have feedback. But the Google Plus, I think, is more suited to East Meets West.
Yes. I like the fact that it doesn't come at you fast and furiously, where
Right.
you're.
East Meets West is very thoughtful. We like to flatter ourselves, and Google Plus comments are also encouraging thoughtful responses. Why is everybody responding to your version of the?
Because I'm awesome.
It's just showing your picture there.
What's my picture?
As I was mentioning in the before we started recording this, this is now the oldest show that I have ever been a part of that is still going.
Do you find that to be an auspicious or ominous sign? I mean, do you feel good or bad about it, or is it just like?
I feel good about it, and that sounds crass. That sounds insensitive. I feel good about it, but not because Buzz Out Loud ended, which I don't feel good about. Actually, I'm kind of sad. I'm very sad that it's ended. And I know a lot of people might think like, but you do Tech News Today, and that's a competing podcast, and that means that your podcast is still going and that one's not. I never have really seen Tech News Today as a competing podcast to Buzz Out Loud. I've always seen it as supplementary. It is my take on tech news that is different than Molly's take on tech news. And while Molly and I do a great show together, there's no denying that. They're two different shows that you can enjoy. And so I'm sad to see that other show gone. I'm sad to see that point of view not represented. And I'm also sad that something that I helped start is no longer around. Nobody likes to see their legacies go. It's like when you leave high school, you don't want to see the high school burn down. Well, maybe some of you do.
Well, you don't want to see your, like, for example, if you want a trophy for the school, like in your senior year, you would be kind of sad if they removed that trophy out of the glass case that they keep in the hallway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I wanted Buzz Aloud to succeed, so I could be like, yes, I helped start that. That I used to be a huge part of that. That is something that I'm proud of. And I'm still proud of it, but it's not going to be around anymore. So
you feel diminished by its absence?
A little bit, yeah. In the same
normal
way that I think both of us felt diminished by Tech TV's absence and screen.
It's interesting. I was at first. As time goes on, although I like talking about like working, because it's a great. I mean, all things factored in, even with the long hours, crappy pay. Some very obnoxious coworkers. For the most part, it was a very positive experience, and that's what I remember most. Having people fondly remember those shows is icing on the cake. But what's interesting, and because I have a different take on it because I work there, people tend to remember, like for example, screensavers. They remember the Kevin Rose, the Patrick Norton, the Sarah Lane years, rather than it was
The Kate and Leo
yeah,
years?
Kate Patello and Leo when they first started out. And so for me that's when it started, but for other people, that's kind of the way things go.
I don't know. I get a lot of people talking about the Kate and Leo years.
Could be just the age group you're talking to. Like for example, there are a bunch of interns we've had come through Revision 3 that remember Tech TV, and what
Okay.
they remember is the screensavers with Kevin Rose.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the age group that you're talking to, because we definitely get lots of fans who come through Twit who remember Kate very well, very fondly.
Okay, was great.
And
Kate
I
was
said
great.
that on Buzz Out Loud today. I said, look, it's very sad to see Buzz Out Loud go, but like Tech TV, Buzz Out Loud is a unique thing. And I remember very early in Buzz Out Loud's days when we started to get responses from the audience, getting that feeling that I had at ZDTV and Tech TV, that we were part of something special. And I didn't think when I left Tech TV that would ever happen again. And so I was incredibly excited that it was. And just like when I left Tech TV, when I left Buzz Out Loud, I knew that even though I was leaving it, that now I knew that could happen again. And it was a community that will never really die. You'll always be someone who used to be part of Buzz Out Loud, just the way you and I are also people who used to be part of Tech TV. That's kind of part of your DNA. And so, with Buzz Out Loud going away, that just strengthens it for me. When I looked around the room today, it was crazy. Like, there's Veronica Belmont, who used to be an intern who ran our board and didn't talk, and now she is a superstar in her own right, doing amazing things. And there's Jason Howell, who has grown to be an incredible producer of not only my own shows on Twit, but plenty of others, and a host of All About Android, probably one of the most popular Android-based shows on the web. And there's Stephen Beecham, who has stepped in after Jason left, as an incredible producer, and established himself as somebody who is a star at CNET. And you go, Brian Tong, Rafe Needleman, Donald Bell, all these people in the room, there's like, these guys are amazing. Look at the talent pool. And of course, that's the same thing with Tech TV. When you look around now, you go, look at Kevin Rose, like venture capital superstar, started Dig. Look at what Leo's doing with Twit. Look at what you guys are doing, Roger and Patrick over there at Techzilla. And you even have a little Buzz Out Loud DNA there with Veronica. So it's one of those things where it's very sad to mark the passing of anything, but those things won't last forever. But the people still go on and learn and do and grow and do greater things. And so, I'm excited to see what we're all doing next, including Molly's Always On show, and Brian Tong's probably doing some computer love oriented thing. It sounded like they were alluding to today. They were a little.
I mean, for me, what actually gets me, and this is something I totally didn't anticipate. I've had all those same thoughts you've had about various people, watching them move out and grow. But it's kind of nice to see the influence we've had. It's kind of cool to think of, like, Tech TV ZDT was the first, I wouldn't say network, but say cable broadcast, or at least TV channel, to actively use webcams from individuals on their computers as a form of communications and an integral part of the show. And now you see various media outlets, as well as even in the larger things like CNN and MS, I'm trying to remember MSNBC, where they just have people via their Skype or via their online client, and it's just like, wow, I remember doing that. We had so much trouble.
Oh yeah,
all the issues.
See me and getting people's IP addresses, and they had to be on the phone while they were on the camera.
I will say that I'm also kind of excited that there are people who might have not known who I was, vaguely remember Patrick or Kevin, but they remember, like, they love technology, like they love that aspect of it. That made it fun and interesting, and most importantly, accessible. I think, for the longest time, one of the complaints we've always heard about from people was, I like technology, but it's just so, for a lot of people who've never been exposed to it, it's so obtuse, so it's such a strange beast to understand. And having them say, "Oh, I'm so glad you had a show that made it accessible. I understand it." I went from someone who didn't know how to turn on a computer to building one, in the span of 2 years, and that's a great thing. Having the effect on people, I think, is ultimately like what I like to take away. It's like knowing that we've helped people, and those same people are now helping other people. In fact, I have one anecdote before this whole subject gets too long. Um, Back when
Well, these
I had
last no subject ever gets too long, but go ahead.
back when my girlfriend, I had an Australian girlfriend. She was telling me a story when she was living in Australia at a restaurant. The owners of this restaurant had this little girl about like 5 or 6, and during the summer she didn't really have that much to do. She just hung around the restaurant. She was the only child there, and I think one of the bartenders or whatever was a big fan of our show, and it took everything we've learned from watching our show, and he made her a little ID sort of card, a little kind of driver's license just for her as something special. The
Not
kind
a
of
fake ID, but something that was kind of fun.
had her photo and had all her information laminated and all that stuff. It's like, I learned how to do it all by watching Call for Help. That's, I think that's great, being able to take something that we've educated people about to kind of do other nice, amazing things. I mean, watching people today put together case mods that Yoshi might have shown 8, 9 years ago, and totally do amazing work. I mean, I'm just always impressed. It's a good feeling to have that you've had a positive experience. That it's not like, oh geez, you were a jerk, you really turned me off computers, or I thought the internet was a bunch of blowhards, but then I saw you and then I knew it was a bunch of blowhards. You know what I mean? It's good.
And I felt a part of you because I was also a blowhard.
It might seem kind of conceited, but it's nice to know that people think of what you've done in a positive light.
Well, yeah, and we had such great emails saying exactly those things about Buzz Out Loud. Folks saying that it had inspired them, or it had helped them through a commute, or through college, or changed their career. I mean, Fordo had an amazing voicemail about how she's going to freaking law school because she was inspired by all of our copyright discussions on Buzz Out Loud, and I'm just blown away by that, because this is just a few people, just like you and me, just going off on like, you know what, we're upset about this X, Y, Z. But
I'm upset about a lot of things.
The thing that I most loved immediately about working at ZDTV when I started there in September of 1999 was that we listened to the audience, that we actually included them in the show, and I really embraced that. And I tried to further that as much as I could on the web, and say and I championed the web as the way to bring the audience into the show 24/7. When the show wasn't on, they could still be a part of it through our forums, through email, through reading articles, through commenting and talkback, and the folks at ZDTV long before I got there had already set up the way to bring those people into the show and show that it wasn't just us throwing out an email address and saying, yeah, it's here, send an email to this black hole. We read the emails at the end of the show, and we put people's faces on the show with the NetCam network.
Remember we used to put the chat crawl in?
Yeah, and we crawled the chat on the.
That was one of my first jobs at Tech TV when I actually ZDTV when I was an intern.
You were one of the Garrett Funabikis in the early.
I actually, so this is, it's a little bit of ZDTV history. So when I interned, my internship started a week before the network launched. So it was great. There was a lot of running around. After my internship, which was around the end of July, beginning of August, they say, well, there's an opening for a PA that we need, and would you be interested in filling it? It's like, yeah, but at the time, I was already contracted by another department run by Ali Hosseini, and that was to be part of audience outreach, interaction. So I was running the chat. And I had to find someone to replace me. And I ran to Garrett, and Garrett and I both went to college together. So, hey, Garrett, you want a job? I need to take this other job. So
yeah.
Someone needs to fill this one.
That kind of thing happened a lot, actually. Yes. But I remember when I went to, everybody went down to L.A. as part of the G4 move. A lot of people weren't invited. A lot of people were and decided not to.
I decided not to because I was offered a really, really crappy deal.
Yeah, I was the same way. I didn't like the way they were approaching the website, and I didn't want to be involved in that. Certainly didn't want to move to LA to be involved in that. And I was lucky enough to find a place at CNET, and it took me a while to kind of find where I fit at CNET. And I owe a huge thanks to Candy Myers, who's the person who hired me there, former ZDTV employee, who gave me the space to kind of figure that out. And the biggest thing that I did that I loved was to start a podcast and start Buzz Out Loud. And with Buzz Out Loud, we included voicemails in the show, and we included emails in the show right from the start. And that was, to me, that was obvious, right? It was like, well, yeah, this is what we did at Tech TV, and it worked. So of course we're going to do this. And yet, I still didn't expect to get the same kind of audience involvement that we had there, because it was an entirely different thing, and it was me. I wasn't a big star at Tech TV, and we got it. We got people who were excited about our show and excited about talking with us about the things that we were excited about talking, and included, and folks like Dave the Psychologist, and Dr. Carl, and Fordo, and Amanda French, and Alex Brewer, and too many to name, became parts of the show, integral parts of the show. And I remember, at least within the first year, thinking, wow, this feels like Tech TV. This is the part of my job at CNET that feels the way that felt. It feels good. It feels important. It feels like something people love. And so that was a revelation to say this can happen again. It wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime thing. That's the internet. People are out there wanting it, and of course Leo has replicated it at Twit, and Revision 3 has replicated it as well, and it just goes to show, like, we actually hit on something back then that could be replicated and could be done again if you do it the right way, and I hope I can keep doing that and keep connecting with people and keep being a conduit to bring good information and good discussion to people and help them keep doing it.
Yeah, it's weird because, when I look, I realize, in terms of production, Texilla is nowhere near where Tech TV was, or Screensaver, or but on many levels, and this is just totally in terms of audience participation, I think we are. I think having that connection, this is just goes beyond just tech podcasts in general, but being successful, I think, in many ways requires you to be able to be someone that people can trust. I mean, being a trusted source is very, like, I'm a trusted source. It's a very easy thing to say, but to actually build that, I mean, requires a lot of effort. And it's funny because, a lot of people like to give, especially, when you see on new podcasts or whatever, everyone wants to put their best foot forward, and they put this tremendous amount of energy up front. But as whatever that is, be a blog or a podcast, they don't keep it up. It's strong out of the gate, but they tend to slow down afterwards. And it's one of those things that I've learned just having been around so many people at ZDTV who were, bred out of a television environment. You have to keep rolling with it. It's a never-ending treadmill, but it's a treadmill you got to keep moving. It's not something where you can just kind of slide and let it relax, because people are it's interesting. I was talking to an online or a woman who does online cartoons. She said, you know what? Even if it's not the greatest cartoon, people are expecting something from me every day. Even if it's not the most wittiest cartoon I've ever made, the most intelligent, people are expecting, and that expectation has to be met, especially if you've created it. You create an expectation, you got to meet it, because otherwise, if you don't, people will, this guy's not serious about technology or doing what he says. If he's going to fall back on this, what else is he going to fall back on? And it's one of those things. Maybe it's my personality, or maybe it's just the way I was raised. I feel that you really have to meet those expectations that you've set for other people, or you set for people to expect from you.
I feel like another lesson I took was from ZDNet's Anchor Desk. Do you remember Anchor Desk? Were you ever a subscriber?
That wasn't the radio bit that we used to.
No. Anchor Desk was a newsletter. Jesse Burst's Anchor Desk. It was one of the first newsletters I ever subscribed to when I installed Netscape for the first time. And Netscape kind of gave you this plea to subscribe to Netscape Inbox, and they had partnered with a bunch of different newsletters, and they would deliver newsletters into your email address. I mean, no one would ever do that these days because of spam, right? But spam wasn't quite as bad at that point. This is like 1995, 96. So I subscribed to Jesse Burst's Anchor Desk, and I loved it. Because what Jesse Burst did brilliantly was write about something that you cared about as a technology reader every week and had a different point of view. So you might get angry at him, right? You might think he was an idiot, but you still read it because he wasn't an idiot, and he would make his point rationally. John Dvorak is another person who's brilliant at this sort of thing, right? And Anchor Desk carried on long after Jesse Burst left. And when I got to CNET in 2004, I was put in charge of Anchor Desk. And it hadn't had an actual host since, maybe 2 years before was the last time as a successor to Jesse Burst had been hosting it. So it was just different people every day, and it had no point of view. It was doing everything wrong, but it still had a huge subscriber base because those people expected something in their inbox. Just like you were saying, you built up this incredible audience, and they came to rely on it. And even as disappointing as it was under my stewardship compared to the way it was under Jesse Burst's, people would not unsubscribe. They would get angry. They would hate you. We put Molly Wood as the host of it, and they just ripped her apart. But they wouldn't unsubscribe because they still relied on it. And I feel like that's something that Leo has benefited from, not because he's bad, not because he has ever been disappointing or moribund, but he has built that audience over the years that just follows him. And I think that's a principle of the internet is you build these audiences and you get these personal relationships, even with just a brand in the Anchor Desk case, but especially with people. And as long as you keep doing things that are even halfway interesting, they'll stick around. They'll follow you. And so if you really want to succeed, you keep doing things that are interesting. And the key to that is doing things that you're passionate about, doing things that you care about. So that comes through. And then people really get excited about it because they know that person is not just going through the motions. They're not just fulfilling my expectations of having something show up. They're actually talking to me. They're delivering something that they care about, and folks respond to that. I think that's the key to content going forward. And I don't want to over dramatize it, but I think that's something that the Tech TVs, the ZDNets, the CNETs in the late 90s discovered and pioneered.
It's interesting. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that people often bring from their personal life into the work life, how they relate to people. It's interesting. There's a lot of things from my years. I don't know why I'm waxing so fondly about Tech TV, but I came out of Tech TV that I brought in my personal life. Certain things about organization, making sure that key pieces of my life, the most important ones, are the ones that are fireproof. You can't cover all your bases, and you can't be exhaustive. You can't I'm going to cover A, B, and C, D, E, F, G. I can only cover A. I can only cover D. So you set this kind of form of triage where like in life, there are only so many things you can insure against that you can have. You can meet. Like, one of the things I've learned, unfortunately, is that you can have only so many. I wouldn't say so many friends, but you really understand who your friends are and aren't when you're under a very strict deadline. And it's one of the things I've learned in life is there's not a lot of there's a lot of people who say they're your friends or they're to help you, but when the chips are down and they're nowhere to be seen, it's were you really my friend? Were you really there? I don't want to name anyone, but I had that a lot.
I'm really sorry, Roger.
Well, outside of you, no, Tom is actually. For people who know, Tom was actually one of the best people to go to. Like, I remember I used to go to your office all the time and bitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Close the door.
Well, that's the source of this show right here.
Yes.
Was us, even before I had an office, when we were just sitting out at the cubes, just bitching at each other about stuff. Whatever it was. It could be world events. It could be things in the office. from small to large, and that's essentially what you get with East Meets West, which is why some people are like, what is this show about? It's not about anything. It's just conversations Roger and I have been having for over a decade.
Well, it's like sizing up people. I used to have the worst time sizing up people. Perhaps I was a little naive. I just assumed I took a lot of people at their word. But being around, more than my fair share of the Patrick Nortons and the Peter Hammersley, you begin to kind of learn how to, suss people out. It's like, oh, that guy's full of it. He's blowing sunshine up your ass. Oh, that guy's sincere. He's just awkward and just can't put out a straight sentence. Being able to kind of read people was one of the things that I think probably one of the best lessons I've learned coming out. Just being able to size up people without having to kind of, well, yeah, everything you said totally agrees with everything I want to do, and I'm totally going to trust in you. Here's $10,000. Go make it happen, and I'll never see him again.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today. I feel like in technology media, which is a very small slice, but it's a slice that we're both involved in and have been involved in for a long time. I don't want to say there's two types of people because that's such a cliche, but there are two main groups that folks gravitate to. They either become the mogul, or at least want to become the mogul, which is moving through either a managerial or a product manager or an executive producer or an owner or a startup person. And it's the person who organizes things and makes things happen. And then there's the folks who are all about content. And what they do is they focus specifically on content and being passionate about it and producing the best content they have. And it doesn't really matter who they're doing it for, as long as they're allowed to do what they do very well. And so, Kevin Rose has kind of been both in his life. John Dvorak is definitely a content guy. Somebody like Adam Curry is kind of both, but seems to really enjoy being more of the mogul more often, even though he's good at the content. So people can be in both camps. That's why I want to say there's two kinds of people. But there's two sort of roles specifically out there. And that's kind of helped me not size up people, but understand people. And it's actually one of the biggest challenges that I think Leo has, is that he is a content person like John Dvorak, but he is now forced to be in this role where he kind of has to be the mogul, if he, because of the way Twit is going. And we have a lot of people in our chat room, or not in our chat room, but in Google Plus, discussing the cancellation of Game On at Twit, which is our video game show hosted by Brian and Veronica. And I know Leo agonized over that because it was a big bet. He spent a lot of money hiring not only Brian and Veronica, but also Justin Robert Young to do writing, Dan Mitchell to do producing, taking most of Chad Johnson's time doing associate producer stuff and running the board, and spending a lot of time and effort putting together a video game show. If it was up to Leo, he'd just let him do it. He just wants people to make good content that they care about. But then there's this other side, and it's like, okay, now I got to play the mogul, and the mogul says, well, we did 12 episodes. It's not growing fast enough to turn a profit soon. We haven't been able to get the advertiser interest. Maybe we haven't marketed it as well as we should have, but it's not gaining. We have to cancel it, and so he canceled it. And it's not the wrong decision.
And it's one of those things where some people have a hard time, I don't want to say understanding, but appreciating, is that, there are things that you love to do, and there's things that make you happy, but, when you're running a business, other factors come into play, mainly being able to pay your bills and at least eke out a profit to make it worthwhile doing that. And sometimes you have to forego the things you really want to do because that's not what's bringing in the viewers or turning over the advertising dollar. Because when you get down to it, when you take something and turn it into a business, especially a hobby, and then turn it into a business, all these factors that weren't there before suddenly come into play.
Yeah.
Right. Say you have a hobby like I do, like collecting and reading comic books. Doesn't mean I can go turn around and suddenly run my own comic book store and expect to make it successful. I mean, the local comic book store, Comic Book Outpost, out near me on Ocean, I talked to those guys. Like, they're comic books we get in because we think we'll give it a chance to see how well it does. But we're not going to buy 50 copies. We'll buy like 5 or 6, and put on the shelf to see how well they do because we can always reorder more. But they're not going to be like, this is the kind of store I'm only going to sell Superman comics or Batman comics and nothing else. It's all be Superman. But yeah, sure, I might fly for a couple of months until rent comes due and you don't have enough money and your bank account's empty. You have to constantly think about how am I going to keep this particular operation running. I mean, just being a business owner is a lot of stress. I can tell you, just
Yeah.
having my dad running a business, a restaurant, um, and knowing other people, friends, and Aileen. I mean, her and her husband run a toy store or online toy company, and it's extremely stressful when you're betting you're all on this one line or this new change or somehow to get more foot traffic. It's a constant struggle. But for some people, they thrive on it. They just love it. It's a challenge to them. For me, it's a huge anvil on my back. I
Yeah.
constantly got to
Well,
keep
just
up.
the little slice of running a business, and I'm far from running a business, but with Sword and Laser, we had to form an LLC
In
because
Delaware?
because that's the way it's done in the business of contracting when somebody comes and funds your show, and so we're not the only employees are me and Veronica, and that's just a kind of a formality on paper, but we still have to follow the forms and we have to file the papers and get an EIN and get a California approved ID and do withholding and run payroll and all these crazy things that we're like, oh my, that it would be so much more complicated if we were actually running a real business where we had 20 or 30 employees or more. It's insane.
It,
It's it's not even just regulations. It's just the complexity of it all.
yeah. I often look at people starting their own business. I think it takes such gumption. It takes so much, serious, single-mindedness to do it. But I would sometimes wonder, like, do they know what they're in store for, like in terms of the long tail. One of the local ice cream shop near my office, Mr. and Mrs. Miscellaneous. The guy that runs it, Ian, I've talked to him, hours on end about running that business. It's because we both come from a very strong food service background. And it's amazing because restaurants are one of the businesses that everyone wants to get into, but it's also one of the quickest to fail because people don't appreciate
I
that.
was I was thinking that today, and when I was walking around in the CNET neighborhood, and I noticed how many restaurants had changed just in the couple of years since I had been in that neighborhood. And some locations are sort of doomed because they're just bad locations, but it wasn't even that. Just like, things that had been there for the entire 6 years that I worked at CNET were gone, replaced. And they'd seemed very booming at the time that I'd worked there. It's, restaurants they're dangerous. They're rocky.
Oh, they're rocky, and they'll give you a nervous breakdown if you're not ready. I don't know. It's always weird to come back to a place that used to be so familiar with you, like high school or even college. For us, like Tech TV, that area that suddenly changes no longer resembles what it looked like when you were. Granted, we'd just be a bunch of old codgers, and we're kind of like, oh, I remember. But it's weird because Tech TV, that building around it, there used to be nothing but low-level warehouses and a huge parking lot. And now there's like this a bunch of design centers, upscale, couple of upscale eateries, and
Yeah.
one weird furniture store that sells odd furniture and shag rugs. But it totally looks different. It looks nothing like I remember. Like I was driving through, and it was like, holy crap, this is that location. But I totally didn't. It was unrecognizable, and it kind of at the same time, it's kind of a sense of dislocation, but also like I don't say maybe temporal dislocation, but just like yeah, maybe I'm just getting you really feel your age. It's like time has passed. It has
Yeah.
not stood still. Things do not stay like they were in your memory, right? You go. When I went to my reunion, I was like looking at like for all the people I used to know, I could count maybe on two hands the number of people who I could immediately recognize because they looked exactly like their face and their hair looked like it did in high school. There was all these people. It's like bald guy came up to me. It's like who are you? It's like holy crap, that's so and so now, former
Right.
class clown is now the vice principal of a local high school. It's so weird because as you leave somewhere, the last thing you remember about it is what's in your mind when someone says, "Oh, hey, do you know Laura? Laura, whatever," and you have this picture of Laura, and then you come back 6 years later, it's like, "Oh, Laura, you have kids. You totally look different. You cut your hair. You lost weight, or you gained weight, or something."
You grew an extra arm.
Or yeah, or you went from sophisticated, trendy to kind of dumpy because you just didn't care.
That's horrible. It's funny.
Yes, Laura is a fake person. I'm just using
just so everyone knows, there is no
Laura,
Laura.
and Laura. I'm really sorry.
No one in the world has ever been named Laura,
No, no, no.
except for you, Laura.
Yeah.
I shaved my beard today as a homage to the final Buzz Out Loud because I'd never done Buzz Out Loud with a beard, and so I wanted to do something special to mark the passing. But what's funny is how many people didn't notice. So Veronica was the first person I saw. We met up outside of CNET and walked in together. I had to point it out to her. She didn't even notice it.
She sees you like every week, doesn't she?
Exactly. She sees me all the time. Molly Wood, who I don't think we've seen each other in person. We talk a lot, but we haven't seen each other in person in maybe a couple months, immediately points at me and is like, "Oh, my God, you shaved your beard," and is like, "It's weird. It's like Tom's back," because that's how she remembers me being at CNET the whole time, right? Is without the beard. And so to her, it's like, well, that's the way you're supposed to look. Whereas with the beard, I look, I look different, of course.
You do look different. If you grew it out bushy and had a conductor cap.
I think I'm going to do that.
Shall we get to the questions, or not questions, emails?
Sure, yes. Oh, look, Colleen joined. Colleen, why you always join? You joined right at the end.
Sorry.
And your background's always green.
That's not a criticism.
Oh, I'll work on it, though.
Yeah.
Are you at home?
Can you be psychic
No.
and know where we're starting from now on?
What time do you usually start? 8?
We never start at the same time.
No. Then how? Okay.
I'll text you.
Yay.
We still need to grab dinner.
Yeah, what are you up to tonight?
Right now, after this is probably work.
Okay.
Well, then, I just had dinner like an hour ago. I ate my leftovers I nuked for 5 minutes. It was good. I had mushrooms and carrots and a big chicken that had cooked too long, so it was a little soggy.
Your parents would be proud. That sounds very healthy.
Hey, you know what? I used to eat really crap. I ate like crap back at Tech TV. Went under the crockery. I would eat all that. I would eat enough.
Oh, the crockery. I know. Yeah.
That place. What's so funny is the most unhealthy restaurant within walking distance of that place is now a vegetarian restaurant called Source, and it's really good. It's great, but like they have something called Cluck, which is their fake chicken, or imitation chicken, and they have a Cluck Club or something like that with all the imitation bacon on. Really feeling really good. It's like, holy crap! If this is what every vegetarian food item tasted like, I could totally make the conversion without any.
Yeah, I really like the taste of fake meat. I just wish they wouldn't call it fake meat because
call it something else.
I have some other expectation in my head, but like deliciously textured and seasoned soy products are actually quite good.
Like the tofurkey, it looks like a cylindrical piece of hardened tofu.
Or the vegetarian equivalent of like chicken nuggets and stuff like that are always really good, but they're not chicken, and you have chicken in your head, and it doesn't turn out.
Yeah. They should just have chicken-like taste. It tastes like chicken. This vegetable tastes like chicken. So what are you up to?
Our questions on our blog, Sobrillion.com/EMW, a lot of them are about broadcasting, telling people when we broadcast, and they understand that we don't have a regular time. But we did Twitter it this time, as well as putting it on Google+.
That's what I thought.
I don't think that we need to do much more than that. But let us know if you're like, actually, I'd like you to also post it on Friendster, and we'll look into that. But I think the thing was I was just putting it on the Google+ announcement before, and some folks were not finding it right away. And so if we put it in a couple places, they're more likely to find it because it's in a couple more places. So we'll try that. Let us know how that works. And then on Google+, we actually have a bunch of people commenting, and Steven Sarkosh has an interesting question. that Colleen, I think I'd be interested in what you think of this because it pertains to me and Roger. He says, do you think with all the major networks like Twit, Frog Pants, Revision 3, Geek and Sundry, Nerdist, etc., there's a glut of talent incest, the same hosts again and again, and that is possibly a cause of stagnation in the emerging IPTV world? No offense to you and Roger.
You know what I say? Nothing says loving like marrying your cousin. All right. It's one of the criticisms I would actually lay, not on just our industry, but the television broadcast industry in general, even radio.
Is there any industry you've ever worked in that you didn't see the same people all the time?
Restaurant people, you do not see the same people. There's a lot of drifters that hey, you need a cook, I can cook. Like, okay, and then they'll disappear in like 4 months, never be seen again. Except when someone calls on the phone, says they're a sheriff, and has a warrant out. That's a completely different story.
But if I may suggest my opinion, I don't really think that there's a glut of talent. I think there's always a shortage of talent, and that the better talent, if you do good work and you do it regularly and you're good at actually, delivering it to people in a form that they can discover, like you were just discussing, I think that most definitely there's always room for more. I think, as with any community that's somewhat specialized, you feed on yourself. I mean, when I go to DEF CON, right, I see the same people every year. When I work in IP television, which, by the way, means something completely different than the stuff that we're talking about here. That's more like, UDP and PIC2 transport streams over,
right,
home, like triple play this, or, AT&T versus that. But, I think maybe there's a lot of self-referential stuff that goes on in this particular community, but I work at YouTube. I see millions and millions of videos go through the place that I have no idea who they are, and they have millions and millions and millions of followers. So don't assume that because you don't know who they are, that means they're not out there.
Or that they're not important to someone else.
Right.
I think it may be an observational bias, not just on Steven's part, but on the part of lots of people who, let's say they discover Leo first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then through Leo they discover Molly Wood, and through Molly Wood then they discover Scott Johnson, and then through Scott Johnson they discover me, and then through me they're like, oh well, look, he's doing a show with Molly Wood. Oh, what now? He's doing a show with Leah Laporte. Oh, and Leah Laporte, and it's just because we all know each other, and we know that we're good folks and willing to have us on our own, each other's shows, and we complement each other. That's going to feed the beast, as you say, and at the same time, it fits your tastes. You like the first person, and that person likes to have this person on their show, so it's sort of a confirmation bias or a selection bias that you're going to end up liking these other things that this person does, and liking the things that the person likes also does. In fact, I'm not sure that I'm making myself clear here, but it's sort of like, well, if you like stuff, then you're going to like more stuff that's like that stuff. Yeah.
And don't you think that a lot of communities, when they're doing stuff like this, they, you have the Rat Pack, or you have the, Beatniks, or like.
I wish we could be the Rat Pack. That would be awesome.
We'd be way cooler. But
the Beatniks.
We have better gadgets.
We smell better.
Yeah, I think that to a certain extent, we're all working on similar stuff, and we have our own kind of little subculture and community, and we're working on it together in our own different ways, and we come and we go, but, as a group of friends. The funny thing is people think that we hang out on weekends.
We don't.
Not every weekend.
Yeah. Although, what's interesting is this is something that it never occurred to me until I had a guest back on the Screensavers mention it to me. Says, it was a reoccurring guest. He came like every month. I said, Roger, I've been on a lot of, shows like, news networks and talk shows. But you're the only outfit, he was talking about Tech TV at the time, where you guys actually hang out together. Because most people generally, after the day is done, they exit the door and you don't see them. They like disappear into the Twilight Zone, and they, you don't know what happens to them. but you guys actually go out and like hang out, drink, party, get married to each other, you know, have a birthday party. It was the most bizarre thing, and I think part of that had to do with the fact that, at least in my instance, a lot of the people that worked at Tech TV, we were all classmates. We all went to SF State, and when we graduated, we naturally migrated to the only network that was hiring in the Bay Area, which was ZDTV at the time.
I was riding in a car with Brian Brushwood and Darren Kitchen and me, and we were sitting around saying, don't you think it's hilarious that everyone thinks we hang out on weekends? And it's, you know, I mean, sometimes you're working on similar stuff, and you meet each other, and you're always in the same place, and it's like college, right? That's how.
Was it a weekend when you were driving?
Yes. That's why it was funny. Because we're not supposed to hang out on weekends. You know, it's supposed to be this whole illusion, but actually we are all friends. You know, I think the perfect example of that is these guys, the Mythbusters. They're always talking about how they do not, under any circumstance, socialize outside of work, and they don't even particularly like each other. But they're amazing coworkers, and that is the extent of their relationship.
I can see that. I've seen shows like that where they just like, yeah, what band is that? It's Dave Matthews Band or whatever, where they literally all show up at a concert, like the concert they're going to play at, you know, separately. Like they all get on different planes. They come from different parts of the country or whatever.
Right.
They're not like, hey, let's all like, you know, pile into the tour bus and show up at, you know, show up in New York City or San Francisco or whatever. And when I first heard that, I always thought it was kind of weird. It's like, you don't like these people, you don't think they're part of your life. But what I've grown to understand is, you know, just working in other places, not everyone, you're not going to get along with everyone. And perhaps it might be a fluke that I got along with so many people at CDTV as I did. But subsequent locations, I can honestly say I did not make a lot of friends. It's like, yeah, hey, what'd you do over the weekend? No, you know, I brought my kids over to see their grandmother. You know, that's it.
But don't you feel like sometimes you'll be at a place where there's like, you know, a bunch of different teams, and maybe 4 of 5 teams there don't socialize, don't have a good rapport, but every so often you get a team of people that's really fun and they feed off of each other, and then when somebody joins the team, they join that energy and that kind of fun. So if you have a workplace where there's no, like, you know, you don't bud onto that, like, energy of actually hanging out, then it's just never going to happen.
Yeah. No, I we were kind of talking about that earlier, and to me, Buzz Out Loud was one of those kinds of teams, and it was the first time that I realized that could happen more than once, because Tech TV was like that, as Roger was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you lost one love doesn't mean you can't love again.
Oh.
You can give your heart again.
Someone here was just talking in the comments about Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I always think it's really fun the way that you'll see, like, the guys from the Colbert Report and the Daily Show show up on his documentaries, and then he'll show up on their shows.
Yeah.
And it's like, in my mind, they all hang out on weekends.
Right.
They probably do. Hey, let's go over to Neil's house.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But those are if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that, you know,
Those are the exceptions.
There's a lot of awesome people on the other side of, you know, the camera, but once you get to know them, they mean something completely different to you. Yeah. I actually, like, saw probably, you know, a good percentage of my friends growing up on television. They're no longer them to me. So sometimes if somebody's, like, really important to you, like, you know, if I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is totally awesome, maybe I don't want to shatter this, like, godhood illusion in my head of him, you know?
Like he makes mistakes, has to take a crap like everyone else.
Well, sometimes the legend is meaningful.
It is, you know, it can be. I mean, one of the things I've learned is that ultimately it's, you know, when you look at a person, yeah, you can deify him in a way, but at the same time, you know, knowing them as a human is just as important and just as meaningful. I mean, like when I first met Ed McMahon, I was like, you know, I'm not sure what to think. Because the guy I was supposed to Star Search was Johnny Carson's, you know, flunky for the longest time. He turned out to be an incredibly interesting, fascinating purpose, and we were talking for the longest time, like what he did before, you know, broadcast when he was in World War II. He flew F-4 Corsairs, and it actually made a much more interesting picture. yeah, he had work issues and stuff like that, but he was just, he was a nice guy. It was kind of funny. He was actually offering me a job. In hindsight, I probably should have taken it because his assistant was leaving for to be like a stage mom or a tour mom or whatever for NSYNC, one of those boy bands, 98 Degrees or whatever the heck they're.
Nice.
So
You'd be a member of a boy band now? Is that what you're saying?
No, she was going to go work for a boy band.
Oh, okay.
I could fill her places, be assistant to Ed McMahon.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, but I also think there's. I mean, I'll give you one instance. The last lecture by Randy Pausch is, really important to me, and I really enjoyed it. And I know he's not around anymore, but if he were, I'm not sure I'd want to meet him. Like, what he means to me in my head is like, something that I don't think any human could live up to, and it.
You've attached certain emotional and I guess meanings to what
exactly,
he represents.
and because of that, I strive to be a better person and do awesome things, and I feel like sometimes I enjoy the fact that there's this wall.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand what you're saying, and I've gone through that sort of seeing people from the outside, then getting to know them, getting to meet them, getting to work with them, and it definitely changes your perception. And that's not necessarily a negative thing. It doesn't mean like, oh, I used to idolize them and now they're a jerk. It's more like they just become different in your eyes. They become
human,
not less, but
they become different.
Yeah, it's just different, and Leo's an example of that, right? When I first interviewed for ZDTV, I got a tape of Leo and Kate doing the screensavers, and there was like, and I had heard of Leo Laporte before that, and there he was doing the television show, and then I got to interview with him, and then I got to work with him, and now he's my boss. So I've had lots of different relationships with him, and he's a different person in all of those relationships. And the same goes for lots of folks on Tech TV when I was working there, where I saw them on TV day in and day out on the little TV in my desk, and then I would, for some reason or another, have to work with them on something, and then they became interactive human beings. And I think that's actually one of the cool things about the internet is that folks who are on screen are now actually available to interact with.
Yep.
And maybe not exactly the same way as you would in person, but at least in a much bigger way than they were before. Said Chad Johnson joined us here.
Hello. How's it going?
Hey, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Oh no, is my video not working?
I can see you. I think it might be a little laggy on.
Yeah, you just haven't refreshed on my end yet.
I love that Chad's hair is like an illegal color in the color space. Like occasionally he'll join and it'll just be like the computer
Holy crap, Nicole
doesn't know what to do.
Oh my God, it's an online thing.
Hello?
No way.
None of us are even within like any square miles of each other.
Yeah, I know. This is fantastic.
Well, Nicole lives in the city, so I'm probably no more than 4
less
miles.
than 7.
Yeah, definitely less than 7 miles away.
Well, I got a special message from the chat room that said that there wasn't enough cats in this, so I had to join.
Thank you for adding cats.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
To this
Away with you,
hangout.
cat. Shoo.
Well, every time I feel like we're getting close to wrapping up, cool people join, so we can't wrap up now.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
need to get Scott Johnson in here.
Well, I heard you guys talking about people, working with people that you sort of knew
you
before. That it
I
was
hate.
that I hate. Yeah, and I just had to join. No, and on that, Brian Brushwood. But yeah, that was a sort of. I just wanted to pipe in and just be like, yeah, I had a similar experience where I was a fan of, or not the exact same experience, but I was a fan of Brian, and then I ended up working with him because he was so approachable. But yeah.
Yeah, and Brian is. He's totally one of those guys that you can definitely have different relationships with because he's such a he's like Leo in that he's such a good performer that you kind of have this weird period where you realize, wait, if they didn't like me, they wouldn't have to let me know.
Right. Well, and what's interesting is in Brian and Leo's case, they're both genuine.
Yes.
What you see is really them on their shows.
But you
they're
realize
also,
they could be Darth Vader if they wanted to be.
they're also different off screen. So it's basically like they're showing you a slice of them. Brian, I mean, think about it. Brian Brushwood could not be the Brian Brushwood of Scam School 24 hours, 7 days a week.
With
or
his
he
2
would-
children and wife.
He would explode. Yeah, it would just the metabolism would not support that. So obviously he can't be like that every second. But that what you see is a genuine slice of who he is, and the same goes for Leo. You just when you're seeing those people, you only see a portion of what they're like.
Right. And everyone like you can say that with everyone. I mean, everyone's gonna have days where God they just want to go home and they just want to browse the internet all day long and they don't even want to say anything, you know, and that's just human nature. And I think that the internet medium is sort of diffusing that a bit with people who can broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't cost them anything to do that, which is a new, interesting realm. That we've never touched before.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that, broadcasting it's a lot of things. I mean, people are constantly throwing out ideas as a nucleus around which discussions form. I mean, they're like saying on Twitter or Google Plus or Facebook or whatever, they'll be like, I love this new movie, or I love this movie and there's a new version of it coming out, a sequel. And then there's this whole discussion that forms. Then it can turn into a hangout. People are, are watching it together. And it's kind of interesting the way that communities can coagulate.
Yeah. Or agglomerate, or aggregate, or try not
Combine.
to hate, love your mate.
And with that, I will let you guys continue with your show.
Here's Darren Kitchen.
And
Oh,
Darren
wow.
Kitchen joined us. Wow.
Hey,
what's up, guys?
Hello.
Wow. Is it the most number of people you've ever had
At one time? Yes.
at one
For
time?
East meets West, absolutely.
2 chicks
Far
at
and
the
away
same
beyond.
time.
Whoa! That's crazy talk.
So Darren, we're sitting here discussing the weird social realities of media and, how personalities are not better or worse, but it's different once you learn, once you get to know someone that you had a relationship with before you knew them, if that makes sense. Like you watch
Okay. So like when you watch someone on TV and then you meet them.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
I watch Hack 5 and then
Does it ruin your illusion when you finally meet them or not, depending on who they are?
Well, it's not
Okay.
ruining. I don't think any of us have said, ruining. But like for me, for example, I don't watch Hack 5 regularly anymore. I watch it like in spurts, all at once, but it's still kind of weird to me not to be able to talk back at Darren.
But you can, and people do this, Like, have you seen people watch football games where they're like screaming at the TV? I'm sure it's the same. I'm like, RM, TAC, RF, / and then people are like, no!
I do send you emails about,
Backslash is backslash.
I do send you critical emails about your lighting and encoding.
Yeah, I love those. I forward them on to Paul and I shake my face.
And it's how I know that I'm listening to a good show or watching a good show is when I start to want to be on the show. When I start to say, you know what, I should be on the show because I have something to say about that, and you just start talking back to the show, and I just as one example, the instance with Scott Johnson, I'm constantly I have no business hosting that show. I am not by any stretch a World of Warcraft expert, but I'm always listening to that show going, well, wait a minute, but I got something to say about this, topic, and that just means that he's doing a great job of having a good conversation that you're interested and invested in. That's what makes a good show.
So I don't mean to change topic, but Scoble just posted, I guess he bumped into Sergey wearing the new Google glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I
the Borg style.
Oh,
I
sign
can't-
me up.
Tell you how badly I want these.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about these? Huh?
Uh,
Yeah.
You know what?
Can we
As
integrate
long as the displays that they put in are set at infinite focus, it shouldn't be an issue. But the way it was being at least in the demo video, the way the focus was changing, it could be kind of distracting. But,
Yeah, and I mean, I think what the whole reason they announced it, they said is that, you can't really build this product in secret. You kind of have to go outside and try it. So I think that's the sort of thing you'll find is, oh, this is totally impractical if you're not sitting in a room. Or maybe they've accounted for that. I don't know. I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
I need to find an employee coworker who has one and then trip them. And
Yeah, I was going to say trip them. That's exactly
Oh, the dog fooding line for this is going to, I would wait in line in the rain at night to be able to spend my weekends testing.
Yeah.
If you're there, Sergey.
All right. Well, I hate to say this, but I actually have to clear the room on my end so that Eileen can go record Bite Club.
Oh, bite me.
It's an important podcast.
Well, the Vampire Diaries is on tonight.
Well, you know what you could do,
that makes sense.
Tom, if you wanted, you could connect to the Hangout with your phone and then go into the other room and let her use the room and continue to hang out with the cool kids.
That's true. I could continue the hangout, but I have to end the audio recording of East Meets West in any case. So
So you're just going to cut me off mid?
Sentence. Yes. Thanks, Colleen.
Wait, what?
Let me try. I think I'm gonna have bad lag on my end. So let me just wrap up. Thank you to Chad Johnson, Colleen, Nicole, Darren Kitchen, Roger, and all of you in the Google Plus Hangout who have been chatting and asking questions. This is the most successful
Based on the number of people
we've ever done. Not only because of the people who have shown up on the Hangout, but also because of the number of people commenting and hanging out and watching it. This is fantastic. Thank you all.
Thank
was
you for
great.
having me.
Awesome.
Of course.
All right. Don't go anywhere if you're watching the YouTube version of this, because there will be more. But on the audio version, thank you, everyone. SoBrilliant.com/EMW. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Yeah, I must have really bad lag.
No, my Google thing crashed like twice or 3 times.
Yeah, I noticed
too many
you
people,
left
maybe.
and rejoined.
You can force getting a newer version of the plugin if you reinstall the Google Talk plugin.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe I should try that.
Because it'll update itself over time, but you can get the newest
Yeah.
version
Just
right away.
make it happen.
Just make it do the thing.
Or maybe Eileen.
Did you get your stickers yet?
Maybe Eileen's BitTorrenting in the other room or something, taking up all my.
Well, it's happening to me too, and I've cleared everything on my internet cache.
Oh, gosh.
My cache.
Cashed the internet.
I did.
Cache the internet?
I
Oh
did.
my gosh.
By cache, I mean my torrent stream. No.
So
Alright,
it's sort
guys.
of an edge.
No,
case
you're
for
supposed to do that
version.
at work where you have the bandwidth and you have the legal alibi.
Right.
I gotta get over to 80s night, so I'll check you guys later.
Where's 80s night?
Next door at the Baltic. What?
That's
They
80s?
they have 80s night at the Glass Cat.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Hair's too short for 80.
Cool. Well, I'll leave you professionals to the entertaining.
Hey, you're the professional. You're the one.
No,
who-
You're the only one with the red hair, so I mean that's kind of.
I'm just compensating, really. It's the red hair is just a flag that I'm really bad at entertaining.
It's a red herring.
It's a red
Oh.
herring.
All right.
See, if I was
All right,
good,
on that
I would have come
bombshell,
up with
good
that.
night.
I think I need to roll.
Hey, Darren, it really is
And
actually.
with that, you've driven Roger away.
Colleen, let me know when you want to grab dinner.
Okay, let's do it like this coming week on a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Bye, Darren. Yeah, we need to hang out and get some dinner over there in Berkeley too.
Did you do a weekend or a weekend totally out of the question?
I could do a Saturday, like this Saturday.
Yeah, okay.
Are you going to
Do it
NAB?
Huh?
Are you going to NAB?
No, I'm not going anywhere. Maybe.
No.
Tom, are you going to NAB?
I am not. No. Eileen is though.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I like NAB and CES and South by Southwest are those like fun times where you get to see all the people that you don't really get
Yeah.
to see, but at the same time, they're all completely frazzled from working.
And Chad, I think Chad's going to NAB now. He dropped off already, but
Yeah, Yeah, I think he's going because he no longer has another obligation, so he can go now.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Tom, I'm speaking at NAB. Do you have any words of advice for somebody who's never spoken?
Well, no. My thing when I speak is I make sure that I line out kind of a plan of what I'm going to say, so I'm not totally bereft if I get up there and freeze. But I try not to, I don't memorize speeches or anything like that. And then the key for me is I leave lots of time for audience questions, because that's the amazing cheat, right? You get really good content, you get what the audience actually wants to hear about, but you didn't have to plan it. As long as you can think on your feet and answer the questions, it's the best way to do it. So if I have an hour talk, I almost always prepare like a half hour worth of stuff, and then I do a half hour questions.
And if not, you're like, all right, thanks for having me. It's time to go because there's not that many questions. Okay, thanks, bye. That's way better than like, and running out of time.
Yeah. And you almost never have that. You may have a problem at the very beginning when you ask for questions and nobody raising your hands, and then you just go like, really? Has nobody got any questions? And then somebody will raise their hand, and once one person does it, then everybody starts to think of their questions, and then it snowballs from there. I've never had one that I had to end early because nobody asked questions.
Well, you're also the Tom Merritt.
Yeah, but no, but
From
I've had pretty empty rooms.
Published author. Lord of all he surveys.
Please stop.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming and hanging out.
No problem. It's fun. And
I feel like I should have logged on earlier, but oh well.
I feel like maybe you should have like a like start the show once, I don't know, like give people a moment to join the Hangout.
Give more runway for the hang.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to say schedule, and that's just not correct. But
No.
No.
Just a little more runway where we're just kind of, farting around. I think that's
Farting around.
Not literally.
You and Roger.
Literally.
That's the next new podcast. It's called Farting Around.
If we didn't already have call it easy, if we ever get sued by Food Network, we'll call it Easy West.
Why would we be sued?
I think we need more podcasts.
There's the East-West Bank. We're
I
going to
agree.
sue a bank.
There's
I
also
can't
the
do
Fifth
anymore.
Third Bank.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.